we were just like, screw it, let's just go live.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Dungeon Nerds podcast. That was painful. That was so painful. Sorry it's been such a long time, ladies and gentlemen. Yet again, we're incapable of keeping to a schedule. I've just spent the last half an hour trying to sort out audio settings because Midnight, as usual, has decided to change her bloody headphones. Anyway, we are...
I'm going to leave that for Christmas. I can't test them out, otherwise I'll send them back.
We also have someone else, but he's not able to talk right now because he's unimportant. But we are joined by the wonderful, the magnificent, the glorious Laggy with an extra G, because he doesn't sound like a big enough... he can't talk right now, but he will be joining us in next week's podcast, where we're going to be discussing Doctor Who. So that's a plug for the next one for you guys to check out. In today's episode, though, we're going to cover the usual bits, going over some of the new releases that have been announced for Warhammer 40,000, some of the changes that have been going on with us lot, and what we've been up to and everything like that. And if we've got time for it, we're going to go a bit into our opinions on anime and like both myself's and Midnight's opinions on our favourite anime and the issues with them and the good things about them. So we're going to start off with, as always in our podcast, we call it Dungeon Nerds, but it really should be called 40k Nerds. What's been announced for, well, the stuff that's been announced for Christmas this year from Games Workshop for 40k. There's been fuck all, to put it bluntly. I don't know if you've noticed this, Midnight, but there's been nada. Really?
Oh, I'm aware. Yeah, no, I've seen their new... Well, the newest thing they've got is the opening times. That's their newest thing, guys.
I mean,
opening times.
no, I say that they haven't really announced anything new. The only thing that I've noticed that they've announced that is in keeping with the Christmas time is obviously the Christmas model, and that is this year's rendition of Red Gobbo, which we're all for because we love the Red Gobbo. He's one of the best things that was given to us by Games Workshop. In fact, I painted up your one, didn't I, Midnight?
Yes, you did.
And we've used
that
him.
Actually worked really, really well. Oh my god, they have they have merch, like proper merch.
What do you mean they have proper lurch?
Merchandise.
Right, you said
Sorry,
lurch.
I said merch.
Yeah, it sounded like you're saying lurch.
Oh, I don't know.
Jesus Christ. We go live and all of a sudden your headphones refuse to bloody work.
I know. One of the funny things
Yeah, that is another thing that was announced, obviously, but they're actually from a few Christmases back, those Christmas jumpers.
Oh no, the Christmas jumpers, they are legit t-shirts.
Okay. So
yeah, there's a Red Gobbo with Squigs, with Merry Squigmas, with Wow underneath it, and they have the colour paint pot, a white star, and a t-shirt.
Why the fuck would you get White Scar as a t-shirt? The paint barely works.
No.
If you are buying that t-shirt for yourself, you are effectively saying to the world, I refuse to work in any way that I am actually supposed to work in. That's what you're saying if you get a white scar themed t-shirt. And I don't mean the fucking Space Marine chapter, I mean the paint. It's the most useless paint on the planet. Games Workshop have never been able to produce a white paint that's worked.
I know, and it's really annoying. But did you know they do phone cases?
They do phone cases.
Yeah. Adapter Sororitas.
Of course, you're looking up the fucking Sister of the Battle phone cases.
I am just legitimately looking. It's under the gift section of their website.
Yeah.
I'm literally just looking at what is available. I could click on the browse. Oh, and
Right, flat out, Midnight, I don't know what it is with your mic, but I don't know how you're moving or what you're doing, but you're coming in and out.
for food. I'm like sat on my
Um, so yeah, it's just all that was really announced for Christmas was a new Red Gobbo, oh, and some Warcry stuff, which I care even less about than I do whenever they announce Age of Sigmar,
Yeah.
because it's just I don't play. Oh, sorry. Book 2 of Warzone Octarius, which the Master will like because that's the Octarius sector is orcs.
Yeah, she wasn't really fast on the first. It didn't really sound interesting about it.
Yeah. There's third issue of the Marvel Sisters of Battle comic is now available to order.
Yes.
Which is focuses around Canoness Viridian. I didn't know that. That's kind of cool. Bearing in mind, you know, she's that old Canoness Viridian is the old school model that Games Workshop do for Sisters, based off of that John Blanche painting. That's kind of cool. Some arms from Necromunda. Oh, the Khorne team for Blood Bowl.
Yes, they have been a huge big thing on that.
Yep. Which I am all for, because they should have come up before the other ones.
They have actually done a advent.
Oh yes, that was another thing.
Black Library advent.
A Black Library advent calendar.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of that.
It contains
No, I'm
25 individually sleeved art prints, each an A3 size, where each one includes a piece of art by one of the library's finest artists. Art prints are presented in a flip-top box, which also features a message from the Black Library team on the inside.
okay. That's cool. There is another advent calendar that was announced, however, the Space Marine Chibi one,
Yes.
which I'm really gutted that I can't afford, because apparently there's a Lamenta one in there. And I was just like, no, please, that's so hot. Like, they're never going to release a Lamenta Chibi again. Why can't I get that? That's such bullshit. But I know full well, we both know that the Chibis are so hit and miss on paint quality.
Oh,
Like, when they first released them, and like the Ultramarine one was okay, the Skitarii was okay, the Sisters of Battle was okay, but the Grey Knight one was fucking atrocious. It was so bad, the Grey Knight one. I never thought I could say that a Grey Knight looked too shiny. But yeah, it was the worst looking one out of a lot of them. But there's always new books coming out though, isn't they? Black Library churn them out. Black Library churn out books like I churn out on the toilet after a Chinese. Like, it's
only £6 this book.
yeah, it's hilarious because their novels have gone down in prices. But what else was there? You see, what I was really hoping for, and I don't know why, because it's not like I could afford the damn thing. I was hoping that Games Workshop would do one of their Christmas Army box sets. You know what I'm on about, Midnight.
Yeah.
Like they do like 3 or 4 for both each for Age of Sigmar and 40k, and they were really good quality for money sets. And it doesn't look like they're doing one this year. And
I haven't been in the shop to go and have a nosy if there is.
there's been nothing
Right
mentioned.
now.
Yeah, but the thing is, there's been nothing mentioned on the Warhammer community page. Nothing mentioned online about it. And it's getting late in the season, so you'd think that they would have announced it. Normally by now, they'd have announced it in September.
Yes, true.
that, hey, this is what's coming out. These are going to be the army box sets for for Christmas this year. Because you remember the absolutely amazing Blood Angels one they did a few years back. Like, it came with a Battle Predator, Death Company, a bunch of Marines, all bits that you needed to customise them Blood Angels. It was an absolutely fantastic army set. And it was like 120 quid or something like that. But it was well worth the money. Like, hands down, it was one of the best armies that they did that year. And it just doesn't look like they're doing it this year, unfortunately, which is a major shame, but there we go. There's not much you can do about it, unfortunately, but it just seems like a missed opportunity. Never mind the fact that Games Workshop did their first sale ever. Did you not hear about that?
No.
It was for Games Day. It was for Games Day, and it was like 5 or 6 items, and they when I say sale, there was like £2.50 off them. it wasn't. I mean, it's more of an achievement for Games Workshop actually doing a sale, but because they've always maintained that they never would do one. But it was such a, and it was just for Games Day. Like, it was just for a couple of days over the Games Day period. And bearing in mind, Games Day this year was shit. Like, I was thinking, oh, we're going to have loads to talk about. Games Day's happening this week. We're doing the podcast. We'll have loads to talk about new releases. And there was fuck all. Oh, apart from the new Aeronautica Plastic Thunderhawk. That's one thing. They announced that again after announcing that earlier this year on Warhammer Day. Like, it was just, what was the point? Or it was more of a case of, oh, it's definitely coming. So I honestly thought we'd have more to talk about releases, but unless I've missed posts somewhere, which I don't think is likely, it's been a relatively dry week or couple of weeks in terms of releases, at least from Games Workshop. Apart from that new Primaris Lieutenant, but that's what, number 50? I mean, we've had so many Primaris Lieutenant releases that it's got to the point where you could probably field an army of them. In fact, that's something that I might do for the next episode. Before we do the next episode, I might see how many Primaris Lieutenants have been released, because I genuinely am interested to know whether you could form an army just made out of them. I genuinely am interested.
That would be very interesting.
Because if you can, that's a fucking joke. I mean, and it would be for any army if you could field an entire army just out of your HQ choices. But more important, the important thing is not just like the same lieutenants, because obviously you could do that. But I mean, each one of them is a unique model. That's what I mean. So, you know, like the Dark Angels special one and the Blood Angels one, and that's what I mean by unique lieutenants. So it's just been relatively disappointing. On a different front, however, but keeping in the realms of tabletop gaming, you mentioned it earlier. Well, asked me about it. Us getting back into Dystopian Wars.
Yes.
Now, for those of you who have not heard of the frankly fantastic Dystopian Wars game, Dystopian Wars is a steampunk setting game in an alternate like 1800s, where you play as one of the many nations that existed at the time, but with a steampunk twist. So, you know, Britain, France, Germany, America, Japan, China, everything like that.
I play Italians.
Yes, you play Italians because you had to be a special snowflake. And you play as one of those nations in naval and aerial combat. It's I think the best way for me, and Eyebrows summed it up best when he sold it to us all those years ago, was it's Battlefleet Gothic but steampunk. That's the easiest way to explain Dystopian Wars. It's very, very much like Battlefleet Gothic. Obviously the rules aren't exactly the same, but when you think of the premise, it's very, very similar. Each nation has weapons that it excels in, but the weapons are all very samey, much like Battlefleet Gothic. The models are all fantastic. I don't think there's been a single time that I've seen a model in Dystopian Wars I haven't looked at and gone, yep, no, that's steampunk. Each nation is literally like a steampunk version of that nation, but still got the wackiness that you'd expect in 40k. Like the Sultanate ships all looking like they're the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. I mean, for fuck's sake, the new Chinese, they're getting flying dragons, much like Mechagodzilla, but Oriental dragons. Which I'm all for. That's brilliant. I love that. When we start playing this new edition of Dystopian Wars, you can fully expect our opinions on this podcast, because both myself and Midnight have armies. Well, I say armies. That's not the correct term, is it? We both have fleets. I play British. Midnight plays Italian. Demaster plays American, and Eyebrows, he's played Antarctica and Danish, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Danish was his last fleet, if I'm remembering correctly. Absolutely fantastic game, and completely available for you to buy all the starter sets on Wayland's Games. However, don't expect to find a lot of the ships that we use, because we use the old set that was originally produced by Spartan Games, and the new ones are made by War Cradle. Fantastic molds, by the way, very keeping in with the style, but and the old models are still usable, which is even better. But the Italians aren't available in the new edition because they haven't been re-released for the new edition.
No, we haven't had them yet.
So
but I got mine off of eBay.
Yeah. So if you wanted to use the old Danish or the old Italian, you would have to look up the old ships on eBay. And last time I checked, at least, they weren't that pricey on there.
No, I found some Russians on there earlier because I was looking for a new case.
Oh, no one plays fucking Russian. No one played them in the old game.
Yeah, they were like brand new in case. They were like a £5 each.
Yeah, exactly. It says it all, brand new in case.
Like
that's less than they sold retail. That's less than they sold retail. That is a joke in and of itself.
eBay is my best friend right now. But I'm trying to find one of the old style of boxes for the master.
Oh yeah, the old suitcases. I remember you saying, yeah.
Holding his stomper. Like, he has one of the really old Citadel chests. And like, we ordered one, and then 2 weeks later, they told us that they weren't going to make any more, and what the stock was what the stock is. So I found it on eBay. I'm currently in the middle of a bidding war about it.
Well, they've been so up and down with sizes for the chests that it's become a bit of a joke how much of a ball ache it is to get carrying cases. I mean, I know a lot of people that just don't buy off of Games Workshop because the newer ones don't have a good reputation. Oh yeah, I remember you telling me that do them special made for loads of different games, don't they?
Yeah, well, for the Helldrake, you have to have a special one anyway because of the way the wings sit.
Yes.
They do a pot of about 5 different size sheets. That's about 50 quid. And you custom make it to your specifications.
Now, is it pricey? Yes, but is it a fan-made thing giving us an answer that Games Workshop will never give us an answer to? Because I know full well and a lot of you listen to this that are 40k fans will also know, something like a Helldrake is not an easy thing to transport. Just by the way it's designed, and that's no shade on the Helldrake design itself. The Helldrake is a gorgeous model. Always been a fan of it ever since it came out. But the issue with models like that, as things transpire and carry on, is that they are not going to be easy models to store or look after. There's a couple of examples within Age of Sigmar, for example, where some of the models are going to be a nightmare to transport. No shade on the sculpts, they're gorgeous sculpts. It's just a truth of what happens. The more intricate they get, the bigger of a ball deck they are. I mean, I don't want to imagine what it was like back in the old days with Warhammer Fantasy and the metal dragons. Like, God. Or the old orc metal wyvern. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of that, Midnight.
Yeah.
Bloody huge thing. Barely kept it stuck together at the best of times. And like, how the fuck do you transport that? I mean, I refuse to believe that anyone who transported that didn't need to repair it every time that they got it somewhere.
Yeah.
I refuse to believe that wasn't the case. That they were constantly breaking. But again, no shade on the sculpts. It's just an issue that you get with models like that to expect. So at least there's a solution out there for fans, even if it isn't Games Workshop providing said solution, and instead just never giving us what we want, telling us what we want rather than just listening to us. Like fans, we want to have a brand new Commander Dante. Why would you want Commander Dante? Here, look, we've got a brand new Primaris Lieutenant that's completely different from all of the other ones. But we want a brand new Commander Dante. No! You want more Primaris Lieutenants! Listen to us, goddammit! Are you going to release any of the other Primarchs? I mean, the Lion's still within the... You don't want the Lion, you've got Rabute! Why would you want the Lion? The Lion sucks! Rabute's awesome! But Rabute, we know that he's still... No! You want Rabute, you don't want the Lion! Okay, sure. It's like being in an abusive relationship dealing with Games Workshop. It really fucking is. I know that sounds absolutely horrendous, and as someone that's been in an abusive relationship, it is. But honest to God, it feels like that sometimes. Whenever you say what you want to Games Workshop, you're not listened to. You're just told what you want. I mean, look how many years it took them to give us Plastic Sisters. And the excuse that we always heard was, oh, they won't sell. They won't sell. They won't sell. What happened when they released them? Oh, yeah, that's right. They fucking sold.
Well, they sold out within 2 days.
Yeah, exactly.
I am upset that they made.
But don't you remember? I remember our local Games Workshop employee telling us that they wouldn't release Sisters because Sisters wouldn't sell. And then what happened when Sisters were released? They fucking sold. Exactly like everyone had been saying they would for a solid, 15 years.
Yeah. Stupid amount of time.
Yeah. Never mind, let's not go into the whole thing where, some Games Workshop's stores won't let you use Forge World models in games there. I mean, I know we're not playing games at the moment because of the illness that can't be mentioned on YouTube. But there was a long period of time, you might remember this, when at our local Games Workshop anyway, Forge World's models weren't permitted in any games at all. Because
I watched someone walk in and start unpacking all their army for an apocalypse-sized game, and only to be told that they couldn't use all of their models because it was all Forge World, because
yeah,
they were using... No, all their turrets were Forge World because they were using the different turrets than what the Games Workshop ones were.
despite the fact that Forge World is owned by fucking Games Workshop.
Yeah,
And you can buy, although you can't, they don't sell Forge World models in there per se. If you want that, you've got to go to Warhammer World. you can, or at least you used to be able to order Forge World models in a Games Workshop store and pick them up from a Games Workshop store. You can do pickup for models. I'm pretty sure you used to be able to do that with Forge World stuff. Because I remember Eyebrows having an argument with our local Games Workshop employee about it, because he had one of the turret variants for the Vanquisher, and he used it purely because he liked the way that the gun looked more.
Yep.
No rules changes. Forge World is still owned by Games Workshop. Nope, can't use it. Why can't I? Because it's not Games Workshop. But it is though. Yeah, but it's technically not. But it is. Like, it's... Never mind if you really want to go back to shortly after we stopped playing after 5th edition, when Games Workshop went on that whole thing of, if you customise your models, you can't customise your models, you have to build them as is, because otherwise you're breaking copyright. Did you ever hear about that, Midnight?
Yes, I did. It's ridiculous, really.
Games Workshop's legal team... Games Workshop's legal team just coming down on everything and anyone that they could. And they burnt a lot of fans out. Like, I can think of so many older fans that left the game and Games Workshop behind and went to other games like Bolt Action or Firestorm Armada or anything like that. And Games Workshop's stance has always been of, oh, well, if you don't like it, you can go play something else. What? Like, do you not understand, building customer and fan, because it's an IP at the end of the day, fan support and fostering it? Now I'm gonna stop there before this turns into a Games Workshop rant episode, because don't worry, I plan on doing one of those at some point, because I've got a lot to say about Games Workshop. Both for and against. And I'll move on to another subject. What we've been up to and what's going on with us. Now, we are still playing Dungeons and Dragons, as you expect.
They released a new bit.
Mm-hmm. That you bought pretty much straight away.
Yeah, I didn't notice it until I actually went into our store. And they said, oh, we've got a new book in, it's not on the shelf yet.
Yeah.
Here, have a look. I bought it.
In our current campaign, because I don't think we went over this last time, in our current campaign,
No.
both myself and Midnight, I'm playing as a fighter for the first time. Like an actual fighter, not like what I've done before. A Aasimar Psy Warrior. All from the book. I even used Tasha's to change my stats around because I wanted it to work better.
You also used the new class out of the new book, haven't you?
Yes, Psy Warrior is also from Tasha's, just because I like the sound of it, and I wanted to build an intelligence build fighter that's smart. Still working out the kinks of the roleplay with him, but I'm really enjoying what's happening. And Midnight, you're playing almost entirely homebrew.
Homebrew doesn't even have my class.
So homebrew that I've read your class features that Demaster and Lynch had written up for you and just went, that is bullshit.
Yeah.
Because it is. But fair play, Demaster did turn around and freely admit he didn't make it to be balanced.
He made it so overpowered that I can just, I have, because I've been struggling recently with my characters just being so underpowered, because you've got two members of our party that love all of the dice and all of the classes. Just sort of blow on them, that's the most damage I can do,
And to be honest, the mix that he was going as before didn't suit the character that he was trying to make.
Didn't.
So
Troy's finally made me a complete Beastmaster class.
yeah, because what he was doing before was
His a mix between a wizard, a druid, and a fighter.
yeah,
along with the Pokeball, which is technically a pocket realm, which we are still writing the stats and everything for. But by the sounds of what Lars has been telling me, I can go into it and it creates a shield around me, and time goes slower.
Yeah.
But I have points I can spend to upgrade.
Oh, I hate it when you start adding points to things.
Yeah, I kind of like, I spend a point, I can have a village and people can work my village.
Right, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. I can spend a point to add fly animals to the animals that I capture and put in it. And at 20th level for this boss, I can summon a Tarrasque for 5 minutes.
I mean, aside from D&D, we also like our campaign that we're playing whenever we can get everyone together, which luckily enough we're able to do weekly at least. Maybe somebody will be missing. We've also, I'm going to be running games at one of our local place where we buy D&D from, with our rule books and everything like that. I'm going to be running games there. What else are we? We're also joining in with, they're doing a 40k night there, aren't they? That we're going to tomorrow. Actually, I was going to ask you if you need to pay for that because I wasn't listening when you said.
It's free to play in the games.
Yeah.
And because I got with the boy because that's where he feels more comfortable doing.
Yeah.
His model work, so that's why we're going. And that's free. Like, we're going straight up after school.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Everything.
because I'll be coming with you because I'm going to take my Sons of the Phoenix up and do some work on them. What else have we? So we're doing that. Also looking to run some Black Crusade up there at some point, hopefully, because I've got the rules for it, so why not?
We got rules for all sorts of games.
Yeah, we do. too many fucking RPGs, too little time. We will.
People.
Which, I mean, that'll be nice. It's something I've noticed with. I don't know whether it's just the lockdown and everything that's happened, but I just haven't felt like I've been able to truly enjoy 40k as much as normal, unfortunately. Hopefully that will change. I think it might just be, everything's been so bad, not having money to get the shit that I want to get, everything like that. It's plus with what I want to do, 40k wise, that's a whole thing. Building that up's going to take me a very long time to do, and I'm quite lucky because the missus isn't one of those. It's just like, oh, stupid fucking game. Why'd you play that? She's just, she's quite encouraging. So I've been lucky in that regard. But it's I don't know if you've noticed this, but there seems to be this kind of idea with a lot of players about, if you have, why is the 40k community so toxic with each other? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you like Blood Angels? Well, they're all Khorne worshippers. Oh, you like fucking Eldar? Well, you're weird, or you like, you like intergender porn. That was something that I fucking saw on a 40k group recently. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, you like Eldar? Oh well, you must be. Yeah, it's the community is so toxic now. It's got to the point where the toxicity itself has become toxic. Like, even within communities that should get along with each other, they're just it's vile the way people are with each other, and there seems to be no reason for it. I mean, bearing in mind, 40k players are always ones that are looked at fairly weirdly, because it's just like, okay, oh, so you play with plastic toy soldiers? Well, yeah, I suppose so, but it's not just as simple as that. I don't just sit on the floor with my Space Marine just making pew pew sound. Well, not when anyone's around anyway. But but I don't just.
Players love the fact that you can sit there and go pew.
Yeah.
With your aeroplanes. Like, the boy does it all the time.
Yeah. I said that and I thought, wait, yeah, I do that. What am I talking about? So, right, my models, I earn the right to make pew pew sounds whenever I want. But you'd think that our community that already gets a lot of jokes within it, and to be fair, this is something that I've noticed over the years, because I've played a lot more different games than you guys, and I've been in a lot more different tabletop communities than you guys have. You'll remember this as a thing, especially during 5th edition, when the toxicity, especially online, started becoming much more prevalent. There was a lot of issues with people asking questions about rules that they didn't understand or anything like that online, and immediately getting bombarded with very snarky and satirical questions. Oh, it's on this page, what can't you fucking read? That kind of thing. Right? Now, that's always been a staple within the community, as far as I'm aware, if you didn't get it. And to be honest, even I've been guilty of that a few times, only with the lore more than anything else. But when I was in a bolt action group, when I was getting into bolt action, and for those of you that don't know, but I assume everyone does, bolt action is like a 40k version, but it's World War II. A lot of fun to play, slightly different rules, but still very, very good, fun to play. And I asked a question because I didn't quite understand how something worked. And instead of getting mocked, instead of getting belittled, instead of having like a cascade of people just taking a piss, I got a multitude of answers, all pretty much saying exactly the same thing, but explaining it for me how it worked precisely. No crap, no shade, nothing like that. And I don't know whether it's just 40k or what, but this is something I've noticed with a lot of the mainstream games like D&D and 40k, Warhammer Fantasy, when Games Workshop didn't shit in its grave, stuff like that. I don't know whether it's because it's the most mainstream one or what it is, but all of the toxic people seem to be in those games, and I don't get why. Like, maybe it's just me, but I've never seen them in games like that. I've think of as an example of something that both me and you have played, Star Trek.
Yes.
The Star Trek Adventures groups that I've been a part of. If anyone's had any questions or had any ideas for homebrew campaigns they want to run based off of their own fan fiction, like mine kind of is, nobody gives them crap. No one, judges. Everyone's polite. And bearing in mind, Star Trek's gotten a lot of crap recently for its toxicity and its fan base, and yet it's not a thing. And I don't get it. Like, is it just because it's Warhammer? Is it just because it's the poster child for tabletop games that only the dickheads play it? Is it the fact that, unlike a lot of other games, 40k is probably the most exploitable out of tabletop games? I mean, think back to 5th edition when me and you were both playing a lot. There was such a thing as hilariously broken and overpowered armies. Like when the Necrons first got re-released, when they got their update for 5th edition. They were the most overpowered bullshit army in the game. but which immediately drew a lot of people, and you know who I'm talking about, that none of us really enjoyed playing with, to those armies. It just attracts the worst sort of people. Warhammer sometimes.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other games that we've played that aren't so exploitable and are more balanced either for, in the case of bolt action, historical reasons, or I'm trying to think of another game. X-Wing isn't as exploitable. Or I don't think it is, but that's just my opinion from what I've played. I've noticed a lot less in the game, to put it the best way I can, douchebags that play it. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you ever suggest them trying one of these alternate games, they're very off by it. They're just like, oh no, why would I play that? That's terrible. Well, have you ever played it before? Well, no, because it's terrible. Well, how do you know it's terrible? Oh, it just is. But why? Like, why is it terrible? Why do you think it's terrible? Oh, it just is. It's not one of my games. What do you mean it's not one of your games? Like, I've played so many people now where I've got to the point in games where I'm so tired, I'm so fed up. I so much just want the game to end so I can just go home. Like, why is that never addressed? Now, that's not up to Games Workshop to do it, but why do we not talk about that more? All of us in our group have stories of arseholes that have ruined games for us, Midnight. Each and every one of us.
Yep.
You've got them, I've got them. Damaster's got them. Even the boys got them. Where people are just either sore losers. Now, Aeronautica. I haven't played as much Aeronautica as I would have liked to. And it's very easy for an outsider to go, oh, you haven't played it because you're yet to win a game against someone whose age is in the double digits. No, I haven't played Aeronautica because I constantly forget to bring the damn thing round. Me and you, we've already well established with this podcast, we're terrible at sticking to bloody schedules.
Yes,
And it's like, I've never beaten Danny in Aeronautica or Demaster in Aeronautica. Never. Not once. Every single time I've gotten close to it, and then somehow the bastard that he is pulls it back with some of the most bullshit dice rolls you'll ever see. He plays orcs. He should not roll that high. That often. and I lose 9 times out of 10 through admittedly very clever tactics, because Demaster is very, very good at goading me into these situations where he can outgun me and outnumber me. But also just really lucky dice rolls, because otherwise those maneuvers wouldn't pay off as well as they did. But that's not why I don't play it. I don't play it just because I keep on. I mean, how many times have I come around yours and I've gone, oh shit, I've forgotten my Aeronautica. I was going to bring it over so we could have a game.
This is why you leave so many game sets at my house.
Yeah, that's honest to God. I mean, I've got so many models that at yours, because otherwise I just forget to bring the damn things round. The only reason I've got my Blood Angels and Sons of the Phoenix here is because my Blood Angels are complete. My Sons of the Phoenix are almost complete. So my Blood Angels at least are on display. Whereas my Sons of the Phoenix aren't, because I don't have the space to put them out yet. But Aeronautica, I don't mind losing Aeronautica. I've never come out a game of Aeronautica thinking, that was bullshit, or pissed off. But I think to be honest, that's not entirely true. There has been a couple of games of Aeronautica that I've been pissed off with, but you know what games they are.
Yes.
And
to be fair, the boy plays some really dodgy maneuvers.
Look, I've never been annoyed playing with a boy. Never been annoyed playing with a boy.
It's always a
Yeah.
fun annoyment. Because he's so little.
The biggest thing with the boy is that whenever he's trying to do something, you can't do that. Why? Because the rules say you can't. But why? Because you just can't. But why? And I'm just like, I'm gonna You just can't. But why though? Oh, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah.
And but he's at that age where he's in his mind it should work like that, and it's understandable why he's like it should work like that. But it's I've never been angry in a game with the boy or even with the master. I mean, on the flip side, I mean you could turn around and say, all right, why don't you play so much 40k? Are you bad at that? I don't think I'm bad at 40k. I think
I'm terrible. I admit that.
Oh, yeah, but that's because you have the barest understanding of the rules, and there have been times when you pulled off, where tactics you pulled off have worked. But I wouldn't say I'm bad at 40k. I'm by no means, like a tournament winner. I wouldn't say I'm bad though. My biggest issue in 40k is if someone's annoying me, I tend to perform worse. But I mean, back on the subject of Master, yeah, I've never beaten him in Aeronautica, but he is still to beat me in a game of 40k. He's never achieved it. We've done one-on-ones, we've done team games. He's never beaten me. He's never got one up to me. But he's got Aeronautica that he can screw me over with. He doesn't need to beat me in 40k because, in his own words, there's plenty more orcs where that came from, and he's right. But 40k itself is I've heard people say that it's a dying game. It's not a dying game. You want to talk about dying games? Let's talk about freaking like Epic or Battlefield Gothic. Games that were loved but died. A very gruesome, very heartfelt death.
Yeah.
It's and that they were. I mean, I never played Epic, but I played Battlefield Gothic, and that was a solid title for Games Workshop, and it just died, unfortunately. But 40k is just going to go to a different strength. It is not the same game that we played 10 years ago. Not in the slightest. I mean, the rules work differently. The meta's different. The art style, even, I would argue, is changed with the models from what it was 5 years ago. But I fully recommend that people don't just put it to one side. Just be like, oh, it's all Games Workshop care about is money. Well, yeah, they would. They need to actually be able to sell the models. Ooh. Now, as for other games, there's plenty of other games out there for people to try. I mean, we've already mentioned one earlier, Midnight Dystopian Wars. Buy it. They'll make more models. The more you buy it, the more models they'll make, the more we can play and blow up ships that look cool that are steampunk. Go for it.
And I can have my Italian.
Yeah, and you can have your brand new Italians. That's the spirit. But failing that, look at Bolt Action, or any of the Warlord titles, because you haven't just got Bolt Action for World War II. You've also got games like Victory at Sea, which again is World War II, but it's naval combat. There's another naval combat game that deals with the smaller ships, which is a fantastic idea, and I can't believe that nobody else has thought of it. But it deals with like the largest ship that you'll have in that one is a destroyer, say. Those are like the heavy hitters in this game. You've also got the Blood Red Skies, which is Aeronautica, but it's World War II aircraft. That's cool. In fact, if you put all four of those games together, you've got a full-on campaign. Yes, that's a lot of money, but let's face it, you're in fucking it's called Cruel Seas. That's what the smaller version's called. It's called Cruel Seas. Bigger scale models, but the ships themselves are like smaller, or they would have been smaller. If you're into tabletop games, you're used to not having any money. You got Black Powder, which is Napoleonic Wars, but they've also got a supporting game which I've bought models for, and they're fantastic, which is Black Seas. The rules are brilliant. Movement is dynamic, and you can be punished so hard for a poor movement choice. Like again, when I played the Master and got absolutely destroyed because the wind fucked me over. But I wasn't angry because it was still a good game. You got Pike and Shot, which deals with a period of history that nobody remembers, which is the Renaissance. And when I say nobody remembers the Renaissance, I mean nobody remembers the warfare of the Renaissance. Hail Caesar, which is another fantastic game, but doesn't just cover the Romans. It covers, like, you know, the ancient Greeks versus the Persians up until the Middle Ages. There's plenty of stuff out there to try. Don't just limit yourself to Warhammer. Don't just limit yourself to the Games Workshop product. Experiment. Check out the models. Try different things. You won't regret it. There's not been a single model that I've bought that I've regretted buying. Except for one. That was because I fluffed up the paint job. There's not been a single model I've bought that I've regretted buying because of the model itself or the game itself.
But the paint jobs are left to be desired.
But in total honesty, it's there's something for everyone out there with tabletop games. So if you're not liking where Games Workshop is going, take a break. Shit, that's what I did. In fact, both me and Midnight did that for like 4-5 years almost. Yeah. We took a break completely. I came back to it and there was these new Primaris fuckers running around. And the lore had completely changed. The 13th Black Crusade had happened. Cadia had blown up. Everything had changed. And I was just like, okay, I've got to relearn what's happened. And find out, you know, what's going on, what's so different about this rendition from what I played. Because I left and I went to different games. Both I returned to I started playing D&D and I went back to Yu-Gi-Oh at the time. Yes, you can judge me as much as you want, but I went to Yu-Gi-Oh because it's a little nostalgia pop for me. I know it is for Midnight as well, because we kind of you didn't really grow up with it, but you was kind of brought into it, weren't you? Later. Yeah. But the pair of us, we both got into that pretty hard at certain points, and to the point where I've still got a Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Do I
still have many.
Yeah.
I still have the old zombie deck from like about 5 years ago.
Yeah, because I played it and absolutely destroyed it the other month. Because it's so out of fucking date.
But it's still got a lot of power to it.
Yeah.
It held its own against Eyebrows' deck itself.
Yeah.
And that's...
Yeah, and that is an achievement. But we don't play those games. I mean, me and Midnight have never been one to go to like the Yu-Gi-Oh groups or anything like that, because we couldn't give a monkeys with that. And Yu-Gi-Oh is another game that suffers with the douchebags.
I did actually take the boy.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, when we were really into it, he had his own little deck as well.
Oh, I didn't know.
And he was still trying to learn, so I took him, so I was invited. And actually had his Konami card.
Ah.
For all our...
Well, I tended to stay away from the whole Yu-Gi-Oh scene, because at least in our town, it's the especially like the tournament play and everything like that. And you'll remember this, Midnight had a lot of drama around it, didn't it?
It did, but because we went into like a casual, not so much tournament, but casual competition.
I mean, there I know full well there would be full blown fights at the events.
Yeah.
And it was just like it's fucking Yu-Gi-Oh. It's not even like an impressive game to win, like say Magic or. Well, no, Magic is probably that's the big one as far as I'm concerned. Or Pokemon. It's not like Magic or Pokemon, because the Pokemon trading card game is actually quite a hotly contested card game. Yeah. You know, it's fucking Yu-Gi-Oh. It's a card game that had an entire show based around it, where they played children's card games for each other's souls. I mean, come on, get off your high horse, guys. Or You need to all just grow up a little and just enjoy the wackiness that is the game. And like the feuds that would erupt from it, Jesus Christ. Some of them are still going on today. Did you know that?
Really?
Yep.
I think how long we've been out of the system.
A certain somebody that we both know that utilised, I think it was Gladbeast or something like that, is, as far as I'm aware, is still not talking to another somebody that we know after a big fallout at a tournament that happens. Must have been almost 8 years ago now.
Wow.
Like, that's fucking stupid over a children's card game.
Oh, I don't even know.
But and and again, it's I'm kind of accidentally bringing it full circle to the whole thing of what is it with these very nerdy communities and just these very toxic attitudes towards each other. Like, I don't understand it. It's always been a thing for me with 40k. Toxic attitudes and 40k for me have always gone hand in hand without fail. And a lot of people are like, oh, why don't you like we've mentioned it before with the whole female Space Marines thing. I don't like them because I don't think that they're necessary. I don't think that there's a point to them in the game, either from a law or a rules perspective. Other than banning the feminism drum, which in my mind isn't a good enough reason to include them. Not when you've got legitimate fucking badasses with the Sisters of Battle. Like, why take away from that? If you want to really ban on about anything, why aren't there any female guard models? Like
proper guard models.
Yeah, not third party
Singular
ones.
personnel.
Yeah, like a proper. I mean, for fuck's sake, you haven't even got to do anything with the guard models. Just release heads.
Yeah.
The armor wouldn't fucking change. Could you really see the Imperium making any fucking changes for women with body armor? Of course they bloody wouldn't. You don't need to put boob plates on guard armor. Just keep it as is and just give us heads. But no, people aren't getting angry about that. Instead, they're getting angry over no female Space Marines, and it's just like, but why? But why though? Oh well, they should do them, but why should they do them? Like they're completely unnecessary. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a white straight male. Anyway, let's leave our rants there with the issues with 40k. Because I reckon we could talk for quite
Going to be so many.
Yes, we could talk for quite a few hours about that. Instead, let's go on to a much happier topic, at least from my point of view. Anime. We are both huge anime fans. We have been for a very long time now. We both also have very different tastes in anime. You're much more of a it's going to sound nasty, but you're a more of a slice of life fan than I am. I say slice of life. You watch very 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 typical. You watch shoujo anime. I don't. I stick very predominantly to shonen. With a few, but we do have some anime which both of us like together. Like one thing that pops right to my mind that we both like equally is probably Hellsing.
Yes.
as an example, one that we may not, one that we probably won't agree with. As an example, I don't like fruit baskets.
I actually kind of like fruit baskets.
Well, yeah, it's one of your it's one of your favourite anime. Don't go.
It
Don't
is.
sit there and go. I
really
actually
enjoy
kind
it.
of like fruit baskets. It's your
Like,
it's one of your
that's
favourite
why
anime.
I've had a stressful day. I just want to chill, loving
Yeah.
this anime. That's the sort of thing that I would sit and watch.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's not my cup of tea. That's I don't even think it's that bad. It's just not my thing that I usually go for, and it's not like I just watch shonen anime either. I mean, one of the most recent ones that I watched all the way through was Your Lie in April, which is a romantic anime. There's no other way of putting it. It's a romantic anime, and it's a very, very nice anime. I really liked it anyway. Very, very sweet story. Quite sad, but still very enjoyable. I wouldn't say it's up in in my top 10, but it's definitely one that I would quite happy. I'd turn around to anyone and just be like, yeah, watch this. This is good. This is well worth your time.
But I quite like musical anime.
Yeah, which you would like Your Lie in April.
I did watch it for a little bit, but I just couldn't seem to get into it.
It's a shame because the music is very, very good in it. I know you was a huge fan of the one that was about, I can't remember what it was called, but it was about those Koto players.
Yes. Oh god, no, I can't remember what it was.
No, it was a very good. I watched a bit of it with you and Demaster, and I enjoyed that because I thought that was the music again was beautiful. The story was funny,
it's a
but
very
also
good
interesting.
show to watch and just enjoy. There was a lot of enjoyment.
Yeah. What else have I watched that I've enjoyed? One thing I did start watching a lot of, because I hadn't really watched it before, but I'd always wanted to try it, was sports anime. Now, you've probably never really watched... Probably the closest thing you've got to watching a sports anime, Midnight, is probably Girls and Panzer.
To be fair, the boy loves that too. He
Mm.
loves the fact that it's just tanks.
It's so fucking stupid.
No, the abridged is just unbearable.
Oh. Get the fuck up, or the next one's going through your window. Oh my god, is that a gingerbread Auschwitz? I helped. I made the frosting.
It's just so good.
Girls and Panzer, the anime itself, is... I will say one thing about the Girls and Panzer anime. If you're gonna watch it, and I won't recommend this for any other anime I watch, but I will recommend this with Girls and Panzer. Watch the sub. Don't watch the dub.
No. No, I've watched both, and even the boy would rather watch the sub.
Yeah, because for some godforsaken reason, the dub just outright removes certain scenes. Like one that pops to my mind is obviously the Katusha scene.
Yeah, that's his favourite song.
Yeah, it's
That is one of the boys' favourite songs.
Mm.
He knows word for word off by heart.
and bearing in mind that the damn thing's in Russian.
His school teacher, she speaks Russian, and she was absolutely amazed that he could speak. He could sing the song to her.
Yeah.
And she was really excited about it.
But it removes that scene entirely from the dub, and it is one of the best scenes in the anime because it's so Russian, it's so wacky, it's so stupid, but it's just a really awesome scene to watch. And them removing it is just it has always annoyed me that they removed that scene because there was no reason. Instead, it's just generic Russian sounding music, isn't it? In the dub, and There's
It's
other
disappointing.
there's other scenes that they explain why certain things happen, how it all works a little bit better. It's just very annoying, and it is a massive shame. In fact, it's so bad that Girls and Panzer Abridged made a joke about it when they do their customary please support the official release, and
Yeah.
it's just like, except for the dub. Oh god, the dub. And it's that bad that even the abridged takes the mick out of it, and it's a massive shame. Another one that I watched and was incredibly surprised by how much I enjoyed was Haikyuu. Which is about volleyball.
Yeah.
I've actually really enjoyed that. Huge amount of fun. Very, very silly, but still, I mean, it's all about a volleyball team at school playing together, and it's just a lot of fun to watch. What else did I? This is one that I got. That a lot of the guys took the piss out of me for. Yuri on Ice.
Yeah.
You'll remember when I said that I'd been watching Yuri on Ice, and everyone immediately made gay jokes. And I was just like, why are you making gay jokes for? Oh, well, are you trying to tell us something? What? Because I watched an anime about, you know, it's a romantic story, but it focuses around figure skating, and it's about two men that end up falling in love with each other. It's just a romantic story, and I got the piss taken out of me for it by many of my friends, and I'm just like, but why? I'm secure enough in my sexuality that I can watch something like that and not be like, you know, confused. Apparently they're not, so. But what else? What else have you watched, Midnight?
Oh god, I watched lots. Well, no, one of the weirdest animes that we've probably watched is called Dead Man Wonderland.
Oh, it's such a good anime though.
It is.
It's Dead Man Wonderland is so fucking good. Like, it's dark, but it's dark in all the right ways. Dead Man Wonderland. That's what makes it so good.
We've got Seven Deadly Sins with that sort of.
Oh yeah, Seven Deadly Sins
everything
is your
you
classic
like.
shonen anime to the point where it's even got, you know, it's pervy protagonist.
Yeah.
You know, it's so stereotypically shonen, but in a good way. I mean, stereotypically shonen in a good way, in any good way that you can mean that, of course. But I've really enjoyed Seven Deadly Sins. I've got to finish watching season 5. What else did? Oh, one that pops to mind that me and Eyebrows have done nothing but take the piss out of you for watching, and you haven't watched it that much since because you finished it. Vampire Night for you.
Yes.
Me and Eyebrows, we did nothing but take the piss out of you for watching that, because you was watching that around the time when, you know, Twilight was still hugely popular, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So me and Eyebrows would just take the mick out of you for it. I have watched Vampire Night and I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't like the characters, the story. I found boring, personally. Anyway, it's just
I quite like slower animes though.
yeah.
I really enjoyed. I liked the concept for our D&D games for Goblin Slayer was a good picking apart points for things that we were doing in our games that should realistically be a thing.
Yeah, but Goblin Slayer was also very, especially the first episode.
I know, I couldn't watch it twice.
I
I
It
was
was-
going to sit
I
and watch
was-
it with somebody who'd not seen episode 1, and I couldn't sit there and watch episode 1.
it's so uncomfortable, but it's what's even more disturbing is it actually makes sense rather than put these rose tinted glasses over what a fantasy world would be like, which is all too common for people to do. Instead, it's very much like our games. It's a very dirty shade of grey over this world. It's just like, because it's way too common with fantasy anime to, you know, that the bad guys are so bad and everything like that. But bearing in mind the premise of Goblin Slayer is slaying something that most D&D players would view as, you know, relatively minor villains for first levels to deal with, into something truly despicable to the point where it can make you uncomfortable to watch. Because it does. It made me feel uncomfortable to watch it. It's definitely not an anime that I would show my kids. In fact, in total honesty, it'd be an anime that I'd be hesitant to show my girlfriend. It's one of those. It's very, that kind of feeling. You know what I mean?
You wouldn't want to watch it twice.
No, but it's very well. I hate saying it's very well animated and it's very well written.
It is. You just wouldn't want to watch it twice.
No. What else do? I mean, although we took the mickey out of you for Vampire Night, I think Vampire Night for you was more of a guilty pleasure than a love, weren't it? It was more.
Yeah, but it got to the point where I couldn't sit and watch it with anybody else with me, because like when everyone was here, I couldn't just sit and enjoy it.
No.
So I sort of gave up on it. It was in my Amazon watch list, not Amazon, on my Netflix watch list for a while, and that's sort of where it stayed.
So I think the biggest issue was it was a guilty pleasure for you, but it was for a lot of us. It was just there was so many like holes and everything in it, and what's more is. So I have this issue in anime where certain times I don't like it when characters are too nice, and I don't know, it's just that the love angle, I reckon, I know that was kind of the whole point of the anime, and it is one that's aimed chiefly at teenage girls, but I just couldn't get into it or enjoy it in the slightest.
Another one we really liked was the food.
Restaurant from Another World.
Yes.
Yeah, that was. No, do you know what was bad about that one? The pair of us sat there.
We had to order a takeaway.
Yeah. We got so hungry watching that, and the thing, like, both of us are sat there like watching this anime and just like, why are we still watching this? And then we'd watched all of it.
Yeah.
Like, we'd watched every single episode of that season, and do you know what's even worse? Season 2's coming out, and I know full well I'm gonna want to watch it. And it's just like it's. I'm not going to turn around and say, "Oh, it's not even good," because it is actually.
It is a feel good. It is that comforting.
Yeah, it's a very
on a cold day.
Is it that
sort of the thing?
Yeah, is it like an epic story or anything like that? No, it's not. It's nothing like that remotely. Is it enjoyable from the sense of you can just the food always looks unbelievably delicious in anime. That's always a thing in fucking anime. But it's just... I was surprised how, watching that turn from just watching like 1 or 2 episodes just to try it out, to me and you binge watching the entire 12 episodes, ordering a takeout because we were so bloody hungry.
I know.
Because I remember the master coming. He came back from work and he's just like, "Hey, what you been up to?" Sees the pizza. "Oh, you got pizza?" Grabs a slice. "What you been watching?" "This." And he watches it like, "You've been watching this all day." "Yep." But it's just about, "Yep, we know." Okay. Is it good? Yeah, it is actually. Oh, you didn't mean?
Sat there and watched like 2 episodes and then went to go make more food.
Yeah, it was. it was one of those. It was so stupid, but so enjoyable at the same time. What other animes? I mean, I'm also a fan of stuff like the classics, like Cowboy Bebop and Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Now, you probably never watched Cowboy Bebop Midnight, which you should, because the anime's on Netflix right now, and the live action series is coming out soon.
I know. I've been following. I know it's on my Netflix because you put it on my list.
you need to watch Cowboy Bebop because it's fucking iconic and just so good. What else you got? You got Trigun is another old classic that is good, but I never really got into. And then what for me is probably the ultimate classic, which is, well, I say classic in the biggest idea of the word, Black Lagoon.
I did watch a few episodes.
Yeah, you see, the thing is that what you've watched of Black Lagoon is always the early stage where you've got their, and I will be honest here, pretty crappy arc of them taking on those Nazis, and it's a bit shitty. But what's really good about it is that crappy arc actually has a character development whole point to it that isn't mentioned until a couple of episodes later. So it does have a point. It's not just, oh, let's just watch our heroes, or I say heroes in the loosest term, let's watch our heroes kill a bunch of Nazis. It actually has a whole character development arc around it. It's actually quite important. So, although you could miss out that arc, I don't recommend that you do if you're going to watch Black Lagoon, because it leads to an incredibly important character development point for the 2 main protagonists, which are Rock and Levy. No. Revy. Fuck's sake. That's fucking eyebrows and his bullshit character. I said Levy. It's not Levy, it's Revy. Fucking arsehole naming his character so fucking close to the character. It is a very, very good anime though. Beautiful animation. And it's about the criminal underworld. Everyone's got their, you've got Hotel Moscow, you've got the triads with Mr. Chin, you got, I mean, flat out, I'm not being racist when I say this, I promise, it is actually what a character is continuously called. There's a character called Chinglish.
Yeah.
But the person that calls her Chinglish is herself Chinese. So it's one of those, is it racist if the person calling them that is actually the same thing? But she calls her Chinglish because she speaks very, very broken Chinese. Very stereotypical. But she's fucking terrifying. Like, Chinglish is not a person that you want to meet in a dark alley. It's a very good anime that you should check out, and again, I'm pretty sure it is on Netflix, so it is there.
It was last time I looked.
What else have we got? Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. I mentioned that briefly earlier. One of the greatest animes of all time. You could miss Fullmetal Alchemist, which is, I would say, prequel, but it's not a prequel series. Fullmetal Alchemist was being made at the same time as the manga for Fullmetal Alchemist was coming out, so there are differences. So they went a different route in it to the manga with the story and everything. In fact, the creator herself really liked the direction that they went with it because it was so different from her. She found it really, really interesting. The only issue is Brotherhood doesn't explain how the powers in Fullmetal Alchemist work. They expect you to know, whereas the original does explain how it works. So you've got that. you could miss Full Metal Alchemist and just watch Brotherhood, but if you want to have any idea how all of this works, you kind of need to watch Full Metal Alchemist. Again, it's on Netflix. What else do we?
Anime. You watch less on.
What else have we got that we've? I mean, my favourite anime in the last decade is My Hero Academia. I've really enjoyed My Hero Academia. I think it's one of the best animes I've watched in a long time. The characters are interesting, the story's great, the fights are fantastic. It's the only anime in recent years that's literally had me on the edge of my seat with fights, excited and worried about what's going to happen. And that's an achievement for me because I've seen a lot of shonen anime. So for a show to be able to have that effect on me is saying something.
Have you watched Demon Slayer yet?
I have seen the first few episodes of Demon Slayer. I love the animation, the fights. I haven't seen enough yet, but I like where it's going with what I've seen. I love the animation style because it's combining like Sengoku era artwork with modern anime artwork. You know, especially the main character whenever he uses like his water powers and the water takes the form of like something that you see in those old tapestries.
Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love that, and I think it's such a good way of paying homage to Japanese culture and art within their show in what is in my opinion Japanese mythology is one of the most fascinating mythoses that you can find. I mean, the monsters are so radically different from a lot of what we've had. Never mind like the more well-known stuff like Kappas and everything like you've also got like the spider demons and everything. They're just so fascinating. Japanese mythology. I've always loved it. That's why I looked forward to Eyebrow's campaign where he set it in Japan. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see a lot in the way of Japanese monsters.
No, I think it was sort of it petered out a little bit because of outside influences.
Yeah, but that game was a lot of fun, and I don't know whether he views it as a failure or not, but to me there was nothing wrong with that game, nothing at all.
No, it worked really well.
Yeah. And I know people are going to be like, oh, cultural appropriation. I love Japanese culture, and I've always been fascinated by it. So as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm always aware, when it comes to cultural appropriation, and that's getting a bit political, but doesn't it make more sense for for all of us to understand each other's cultures better? And if you like it, to celebrate a culture that you like that isn't your own, out of respect to that culture, if you like it. That's always been my stance. I don't know how you feel about it, but you hear about cultural appropriation a lot, and especially nowadays, and maybe I'm missing something with it, or I'm misunderstanding something about it, and if I am, please let me know. But as far as I'm concerned, utilising something that's based off a culture that's not your own is... I mean, is it cultural appropriation when a Japanese animation utilises Arthurian legend?
We were Fate Stay Night, haven't we?
Yeah, that's what I always thought with it.
They have Arthur as a girl.
I mean,
how dare they?
I mean,
You know.
for what it's worth, the whole Arthur being a girl thing actually kind of makes sense, and they do explain why in Fate Stay Night. You know, in the legend, she's remembered as a man, and it's purely because it's got something to do with her just being like, I will be a king, not a queen, because I'm stronger than any kin. It's very much like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
but I never had an issue with that, and that is I am British. That is in fact no, it's more than that. I'm fucking Welsh, and Arthur was Welsh. If you go far enough back in the Arthurian legend, Camelot is very heavily hinted to have been in Wales, not England. So, and I don't have an issue with them utilising King Arthur in something like that, or even changing the gender. So, and I'm sorry, but it's my culture, so I feel like I can be an authority on whether or not it's suitable for it, because that is by the definitions that have been given to me about cultural appropriation, that is cultural appropriation. I don't know. What do you reckon?
I don't know. I've not actually seen it. I've seen the trailers for that, but I haven't actually seen the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair,
Right.
I've never heard it.
I do like what I've seen in the trailers.
Oh yeah, the fight scenes are always fantastic. The artwork's absolutely stunning. In fact, 9 times out of 10, the artwork to it is on par with, say, like movie standard animations. I've been that impressed by it. But it's just something that's it's always kind of bugged me. You know, cultural appropriation is brought up a lot nowadays. Why is it never brought up when it's a medium from another nation, from a nation that isn't predominantly or portrayed as predominantly white? That's always been a thing for me. Like, why? So, I mean, everyone was surprised when Games Workshop actually went through with releasing Jagatai Khan. That's something that we should have mentioned in our updates thing. Jagatai Khan's finally been fucking released. But everyone was surprised when Games Workshop went through with it. Because he is... Well, the White Scars and Jagatai Khan himself are heavily inspired off of the Mongols and Genghis Khan, obviously. So... And that's the most oriental that you seem to get with 40k, if you actually think about it.
Yeah.
Like, if you properly think about 40k and the chapters and legions that are shown, the most oriental you get is the White Scars. And like we've never got like a Chinese themed army or a Japanese themed one. I mean, got close to it with Warhammer Fantasy. Got very close to it with Warhammer Fantasy. And in fact, the next Warhammer Total War, supposedly you can play as Cathay or Warhammer Fantasy China. Awesome. About time that they got a show in. It's Warhammer for a long time was too predominantly white, and I know that was kind of the whole point. It was supposed to be based off of European mythology, or European fantasy. But 40k, there's less of an excuse for it. Actually, in total honesty, in 40k, if you really think about it, none of the racial stereotypes that we know, or what's the best way to put it, or like the racial features that we know, should theoretically they shouldn't exist anymore. Not in the same sense, anyway, because those racial features have occurred over possibly a period of about 50,000 to 60,000 years at our current point in time now. So another 38,000 years in the future, those racial features that we know and understand wouldn't exist anymore, surely, or they'd be. Some of them might still exist because they probably wouldn't change that fucking much, but you would have different racial
Things
features.
would be different.
Yeah, because you've had. Never mind the fact of, I mean, they're not on their own planets anymore. A lot of humanity. I mean, never mind other planets. Just Terra itself is not the same Earth that we know. So that you'd have. I mean, I know realistically there's only so much you can go with it. I mean, you can't imagine something like that doesn't exist yet. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't just make a face.
Humanity might have gills and wings by that point, you know.
Right. But it's just, you know, different facial features, you know, like changes to cheekbones or noses or neck structure,
as a
stuff like that.
Genetic standpoint, that is a thing anyway.
Yeah.
You
But
have people with really high cheekbones, but you also have people with slightly more sunken ones.
yeah.
So,
And then you get like the more unique mutations that you like, for example, Cadia and its violet eyes.
yeah.
Which is more unique to the planet. It's just certain things like that that have always given me pause in thinking about the far future, because it's not something that would be a thing in, say, Star Trek or I reckon it would be more of a thing in Star Wars, say, but it wouldn't be something in Star Trek or even Battlestar Galactica or shows along that ilk. It's just food for thought on the whole, you know, like you know, racial features, because they are a thing, whether you like to admit them or not, like black hair, blue eyes, you know, Italians, especially during the Roman era, always tended to have black hair, didn't they? That was a common trait amongst Italians.
The blue eyes is actually a mutation.
Yeah. Whereas the Germanic people were more known for their blonde hair. And it's just one of those things. You get it within European cultures, different like racial features, if you want to call them that. I don't really like calling them that, because it's not a racial feature. It's more of a, I say, location feature, if you want to go, or like a tribal feature. That's probably a better way to put it, because it's, you know, the tribes are very insular and they don't
then, rather than split into sections.
Yeah, it's because it was very uncommon for groups to mix too far out from each other. You'd get these groups that would have very common features amongst each other, such as the blonde hair or red hair, common with the Celts and everything like that, and the black hair common with the Italians of the ancient times, because travel wasn't as widespread back then. And you might have something like that again.
Days to get to the next village or the town.
And you might have something similar occur in the 41st millennium, only more on a planet basis, because of the nature of the 41st millennium itself. Different planets would have different body and genetic features to other planets.
So that's why that makes some certain legions the way they are.
Yeah.
Because of the planet they're from.
I mean, it's heavily, a lot of the legions are heavily hinted to be heavily inspired by certain areas of ancient terror. For example, the most obvious one is the Thousand Sons in Egypt. Easily, that's the most famous, but that actually kind of makes sense, because a lot of the recruits from the Legion, for the Thousand Sons Legion, that came from Terra, were formed out of the dying Achaemenid Empire, which was, for those that don't know their crazy 40k lore, the Achaemenid Empire was effectively the Persian Empire with Egypt. Very, very powerful state that was one of the first things taken by the Emperor. The Death Guard were mostly from Albia, or England. The Night Lords were all from the prison pits. Their children were taken from there. You get things like that, and it kind of makes sense why they'd inspire it off of these factions, because it gives something, at least for Games Workshop fans, gives them something that they can associate with. Do you get what I mean? They can associate more with something that looks more like them. It's like, nobody likes a legion just because of its name or anything like that. It's because of the look that appeals to them on a certain level. I mean, you get the same thing in other games, but it's like, I mean, it's like, okay, why is your favourite Legion the Thousand Suns, man? Like, why is that your favourite?
Both of them, I like the story behind them, and I love the colours.
And the fact that you can cheese it by saying that even if you lose, you still win because it's Zinch.
That, yes, okay, maybe a little bit. I cannot be voted for that.
No, you can't be. I completely understand it. I'm the one
The
that's.
amount of times I've lost, like I can claim that.
I'm the one that told you about it, so I can't even complain. But for those that don't know, my favourite legions, because I have two, because I'm a clever boy. I have a loyalist and a traitor legion that are my favourites. And my favourite loyalists are the Blood Angels. I love the Blood Angels. Always have done. Well, I wouldn't say I always have done. That's more of a like. It took me a few years to settle on Blood Angels as my favourite, I reckon. Because before Blood Angels were my favourite, before the boy was born, before you started playing or getting into it or anything like that, I'd say my favourite was actually probably the Dark Angels.
Yeah.
Just because I liked the look of them. I like the knightly look of them. I could associate that with history, which I've always loved. But the Blood Angels I've always loved because they're kind of doomed to either die or fall or become monsters. And I've always liked that. Either way, they're fucked. And then my favourite traitor legion is the Night Lords. Mostly because they're a legion of just completing utter tosspots or arseholes, and as my girlfriend will quite happily tell anyone who will listen, I am an arsehole, so I probably can just associate with them a little bit better. Don't sit over there nodding. I can associate with them a bit better, but it's also because I'm someone that suffered heavily with depression. In a weird way, a lot of their comments and a lot of the struggles I've ended up associating with and understanding and just kind of appreciating the story more in the process of it. You know, there's a quote that I love by my favourite 40k character, who's a Night Lord's captain, Jago Sevatarion, or just Sevatar, where he's dying and someone calls him out on it, and he just goes, "I'm fine," and the man's like, "Sevatar, you're lying." And so it just puts on his helmet, looks at him and just goes, "I am a son of a sunless world and 8th Legion to my core. Of course I'm lying, Trez. It's what we do." Now I don't view that as a whole, oh yeah, I'm a liar. It's more of a case of course he's lying about how he's feeling. You know, which is what I've always done. I've never been good at opening up and telling people how I feel. So I've just always associated myself with that. Now I know full well if you was to do a loyalist chapter, what loyalist chapter that would be, but I don't know why. Why would you do salamanders?
Because I care.
Do you know, that's quite possibly the sweetest thing you've ever said.
And I'm a very sweet person.
No, you bloody ain't. I suppose in a universe that we all love, where most of the greatest champions of humanity are also the worst examples of humanity, having a group of superhumans that still care about regular humanity to the point where they'll sacrifice their lives without fail is just nice.
Yeah.
It's like to the point where that they fought other chapters over it, like what they did with the Marines Malevolent, where they were just like, "Get off this planet or we will kill you." But we're helping. I don't care if you're helping. You'll get off this planet or we will kill you. Fuck off. That's it's somehow such a feel good story that somewhere that even in like the far future there's this group of, you know, like 8 foot tall, jet black, red eyed badasses that are just like, don't worry, we got you back. Like that, and you like fire. You have a thing for flamers.
Yes, my Holdrakes are ultimate sporting flamers because they're dragons and they are meant to be flammable. So I might actually do the other one from my newest one.
Now, I wouldn't say salamanders are your favourite legion though. They're just the legion I know you would do if you was to do loyalists. Yeah. What would you say is your favourite loyalist legion?
I have always had a thing for sisters.
Legion, then stick to God's sake, Midnight. Stick to the Space Marines. I know you've always had a thing for.
No, I don't want to. All right, that's fine. I'll pick vampires.
You take Blood Angels.
No.
No.
I know vampires.
I'm gonna eat you. Favourite Space Marine Legion? Vampire counts. That's completely different game. I know, that's why I suggested them. But no, I get why you like sisters. To be honest, we've mentioned this in previous podcasts. Sisters, without a doubt, are some of the most badass people in 40k.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got power armor and they've got special training, but they don't have any of the superhuman resistances or resilience that the Space Marines get. All they've got to rely on is their faith and the vain hope that their power armor, which although not featured in the rules, is in fact in the lore weaker than Space Marine power armor, because they don't have the black carapace, which enables them to move as if it's a second skin. It doesn't have all of the features that Space Marine power armor gets, nothing like that. And they're able to do all of that, and in certain cases, you know, even beat up other Space Marine chapters. Like
artwork, pieces of them, and they've just got pieces of people in their hands.
That iconic John Blanche picture of Canoness Viridian, you know, so stereotypically early 90s, you know, 40k with the bob haircut, boob armor and high heels on her power armor for some fucking reason.
Don't upset the high heels.
And yet, in that moment, she looks like, yeah, no, it may look ridiculous, but she will fuck your shit up. Nah, Sister Battle are an underrated presence in the fandom. They really are. They are.
Space Marines.
We have more badass female Space Marines. We have the sisters. One thing I fucking love when people mention female Space Marines, and this has become a comment that I've seen a few people make, is the World Eaters, right? You know the World Eaters. You love the World Eaters. Everyone loves the World Eaters, except for Khan. Khan don't like the World Eaters. Khan sets them on fire. But the World Eaters flagship during the Great Crusade was called the Conqueror, and its Primarch Angron was well known for having a short fuse. However, the ship mistress of the Conqueror was known to have an even shorter fuse. And she was so scary that at one point she was called in to be censored or essentially get a telling off for how she'd spoken to some imperial authority figure or something. And a bunch of World Eaters went to deal with it because I was like, nah, you're not censoring her, you're fucking off. In fact, it's become a whole joke in the fandom that the World Eaters, the only thing the World Eaters were afraid of was this woman. Like, I'm sorry, why do you need female Space Marines? You got this woman that's just a normal human that terrifies the out of full-on Space Marines. You don't need female Space Marines with that.
No, you really don't. Right,
no genetic enhancements required to scare the fuck out of the most bloodthirsty warriors of the 18 legions. Like, come on.
But it's like, you know, the short nan that you never piss off.
Yeah, like my grandma. It's really, really tiny, but please don't make her angry. I've got to deal with her if you make her angry.
Exactly. Right.
So someone from another legion insults her or something, and then behind this bloke as he says it, you've just got like 20 world eaters just face palming.
Yeah.
Or bet yeah, face palming, and then the smart one's running.
Yes.
She's got a bolt pistol. Run!
And then you have the really sad, sadistic one waving to them in the background. Bye. You know.
In the meantime, you just got Khan just clapping them on the shoulder and going, "It was really nice to meet you, mate." And walking
If you
off.
last a week, I might remember your name.
But honest to God, it's a shame. I really hope Forge Rod do a model for it, even if it's just a collector's piece, because if any female character that's named from the Horus Heresy books deserves a model, it's her.
Yeah.
If anyone deserves a model, it's her. I mean, one of my favourite art pieces from 40k is a woman and a space marine. I'm pretty sure you've seen it. It's Argyle Tal of the Word Bearers with
I think so. Yeah, I'm sure I have.
absolutely gorgeous artwork. It's one of my favourite pieces ever. It's called Argyle Tal and the Blessed Lady. I'll post it in the in our general chat for you to see, not in the chat, guys. Sorry, you can't see this. But she was another woman that was well known to be feared to a lesser extent. She was a confessor to the Word Bearers. They tell her their sins, and she would listen and bless them. And it's a beautiful piece of artwork. And she's another one I would love to get a model of just as a collection piece. You see it, Midnight?
Painter, they would be an amazing, like, even as an objective marker.
Yeah. It's just such a it's also one of the few pictures you see of Space Marines that really properly puts them into scale how big they are. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
she's about 4'8" or 9. It's mentioned in the book that she's in, and that's a Space Marine next to like just under my height. That's a Space Marine. They're big boys, and
Yeah.
and she's viewed very often as a friend by Argyle Tal, and her death really puts him onto the path of wanting to destroy the Imperium more than anything else. It's an absolutely beautiful piece of artwork, and we're lucky with 40k to have a lot of beautiful pieces of artwork, both fan made and actual publications, you know, that Games Workshop has created. I wish I could say whether that was fan made or not. I don't know. I would have to bring it back up, and I've already closed it. But it's stuff like that that always makes me smile with 40k when you hear people say about how sexist or racist it is. The racism argument kind of doesn't make any sense. It's even mentioned in one of the books about how, you know, they're talking about the past in humanity and the ridiculousness that happened when people were judging each other for skin colour and everything like that over nonsensical and unimportant things, because it is.
Yeah.
I couldn't give a crap what colour you are. If you're an arsehole, you're an arsehole. And I'm sorry, Eldar, but you're arseholes. I mean, if you was to, what army would you like to do, either paint or play, that you wouldn't have thought of, like, say, 5 or 10 years ago when you first started? Age of Sigmar and 40k. We'll open it up. Is there anything from either that you would want to give a go to, even if it's not necessarily to play, but just to paint?
I've sort of painted quite a few things from everything, really.
I tell you what, you haven't painted that I reckon that you'd put an interesting spin to. Eldar.
Yeah, it's.
And I reckon you'd enjoy painting Eldar. Because they're bright colours and they're a very different challenge to what you've done before. I reckon you'd.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Getting tired.
Yeah, same. So I reckon you would do well to give like Eldar a go. I reckon you'd enjoy that more than I mean, I don't think you'd enjoy Imperial Guard personally.
No.
Too generic, you know, like with their.
I've painted pyramids, and they didn't excite me as.
No, but that's because both me and you we've mentioned this before as well in the podcast. The biggest issue with Tyranids is everyone paints them the same bloody colour.
Yeah, but I think it's also the repetitiveness as well.
Yeah, there's only so many times, especially in the case of Hormagaunts and Termagaunts, if you're filling them out.
There's only some models that I actually want to paint.
I mean, if I was to ever paint Tyranids, it wouldn't be Tyranids. It'd be Gene Stealers.
Yeah.
With some Tyranids in it.
I really enjoyed painting, and I could probably sit there for ages painting them.
What?
Gargoyles.
Really?
Yeah. I really enjoyed painting gargoyles, especially because I put some on the old street lamppost that came in one of the extra series.
Yeah, I remember you doing that.
Yeah, and I had loads of fun. I actually still have a stone lamp here that I painted a long time ago now. But I still have that here, and I really enjoyed painting it.
I think it might not have just been the painting though. It might have been the creativity you could have with the modelling to make it look like they were swooping.
They were flying faces. I put them on everything. I put one in the building. I put one on lampposts. I had one. I think I was attempting to put one on a tank, but I didn't have the right wire to hold it there and things like that. That was something that I really enjoyed painting.
It might be a good idea for you to go back to painting Tyranids again, because or painting gargoyles at least, purely because one, they're an incredibly useful thing to have, especially for us with role playing purposes. If we ever go back to Black Crusade, I fully plan if we go back to when we go back to Black Crusade to utilise models and start, you know, doing like boards and everything, because we've got the models for it, so we might as well, you know what I mean. Just to experiment with that as, like, you know, a break between projects at least.
Yeah.
Especially because, you know, you're very close to finishing up your chaos. So between them and your sisters, you know, it's something to fill the gap, if you will, for yourself to do that.
Yeah, I do actually have quite a few things that are still to finish off. I've got my Madness to finish. I've got the Gash to finish. I've got the rest of my Vamp counts to finish.
Especially with Old Worlds being announced.
Yeah, I will, to be honest.
I can see you playing.
Several things
Yeah, but
because
I can see you playing
I've lost
Warhammer
it along
Fantasy
the way.
more than 40k as time goes on.
Very likely.
Because I think you'll enjoy the pitch battle a lot more.
Yeah.
But it's see for me my next project. Obviously, I haven't announced it on the podcast or anything, but my next project is to do Lamenters. It's for multiple reasons. One, I love their lore. Two, the paint scheme is such a challenge to try and do that I want that challenge back. I mean, I got that taste of it with. I think that's why I got the Sons of the Phoenix done so quickly. It was having to do the, having to paint on freehand the chapter symbol. It was the first time I truly been challenged in my painting. That's why, and then I did the Blood Angels to try and get that fixed back, and I just blitzed through them so quickly because I was trying different techniques to what I'd done before. I think that's what I need in my 40k, if you will. I need to have a challenge to push me further as a painter. And I know you enjoy trying new techniques as well, like me.
Still, like most of the older side of the armies that we all had, most of the freehand stuff was painted.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of it was by me.
Yeah, you was the first one to truly try and do freehand paintwork, because you did it for me once with the Raven Guard, and then I started experimenting more with the freehand because I was just like, I
made it look easy though. Like, come on.
don't be big-headed. But I wanted to have that extra challenge, and I was just like, I've made it too easy. Plus, for me, I've always had an issue getting transfers to work, and although I've now conquered that hurdle, getting transfers to work, with my Blood Angels especially, having to do I did the transfers on them, didn't I? And not on their chapter symbols because I got the Blood Angel shoulder pad, so I didn't need to. But their company symbols, I did it on there. It was another nice change for me to do, and I managed to pull it off. And I've always been very, very chuffed that I managed to pull that off because it wasn't an easy thing to do at all. But I think we'll leave it for there for now. This has been a relatively long podcast for us. The missus is starting to complain because she's tired. Thank you very, very much for joining us, those that did. Look forward to us doing regular weekly podcasts starting from this week every Wednesday. We'll be looking at doing it from around 8 p.m. onwards, boy permitting, and we'll see you in the next one, where we'll be joined by the wonderful Laggy, and we'll be discussing Doctor Who, because he's a subject that we haven't really covered on the podcast at all in recent, to my memory anyway.
Not.
So yeah, look forward to seeing that. We will. It will be a rather interesting time, and I'm going to try and introduce him to the wonderful universe of 40k and explain to him how it works. So view that as another one. The next one will be one half Doctor Who, the other half me explaining to a complete noob what 40k is. So that should be fun for everyone to listen to. And then occasional snippets from Midnight where she remembers stuff that I told her like 3 years ago. Like usual.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you very, very much for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next one. Ta-ta for now.